All right, everyone. I'm excited to introduce my next guest. For the past 5 decades, has been the hairstylist to the stars. We're talking about Hilary Swank, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, Al Pacino, and that's just like barely scratching the surface. Her dues, hairstyles, hair dues. Is that? Can I say dues? Her dues.
Or
And
hairstyles.
her
Yeah.
hairstyles has been featured in Hello Dolly, RoboCop, Ocean's 11, Aaron Brockovich, and over 100 other films. Now, author of the book Continuity, which is a memoir and a stunning, amazing picture book of pictures she has taken throughout this amazing career. Welcome to the show, Bonnie Clevering.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm so excited. You get to hang. You've hung out with like literally every major famous person.
Well, kind of like the old Rat Pack, because when I worked with the Sinatras and Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and then I do Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12. So it's like the new Rat Pack with Clooney and Brad Pitt and all those boys.
It's amazing. I have a million questions, but I'd love to start with just what is the path to becoming the hairstylist to the stars? What is the path to becoming the person that Jennifer Aniston calls and says, "No, I need you to come out of retirement and I need you to do my hair for this well, at least one more movie with me." Or at least
Right.
how do you get to that level of trust
Oh,
and expertise and all that?
I think just through the years of experience, and then what happens like any resume, one actor sees something, because I know this is how I started with Julia Roberts. I did Jennifer Lopez at Out of Sight with George Clooney. After it was released, I get a call from a manager saying that, who did Jennifer's hair? And I said, I did. And I said, why? I said, oh, I have a client that was inquiring. And I said, can I ask you who your client is? And he said, Julia Roberts. And then even Hilary Swank, knowing some of the movies I did and like, everything. Then, of course, after I meet them, it just seems like we get along so well. And yet I respect all their privacy and, the good days and the bad days and everything. But they just, and then, of course, back in the 60s, I had to work in so many hours and get my time in to become a member of the union, IA Union Local 706, which is made up of hairstylists and makeup artists. After just working on extras on big productions and learning from some of the older ladies that, did hair back in the 40s and 50s, then I took tests and passed and became a member of the union. And took a few years, but that's how I got started. If I wasn't in Local 706, I wouldn't have been able to do the movies I did because they were union films.
So here's a question for you. Like when I was looking at your photos, and this is just my personal hairstyle. Not that it looks like I go to a hairstyle, but you know what I mean. Like you were amazing with men and women. Is it?
Yes.
And so I could never go to the person that does my wife's hair, right? And she doesn't go to the person, and the guy person who I go to does men. You know what I mean? So is that a thing, or are you just a focus, or you just
Well,
choose?
the thing is, years ago when I got started, the men were makeup artists and the women were hairstylists. There weren't men hairstylists and women makeup artists, except for body makeup. Then there were women body makeup artists. So basically, years ago, the makeup artist was in charge of the man's hair, and then the hairdresser was in charge of the women's hair. But through the years, things start splitting up a bit, and then we start doing men's hair too. I was trained, for both. And I think too, so many men, of course, are stunt men, and they're doing all the stunts for the male actor. So we had to learn, if their hair didn't look alike, we had to learn how to do wigs and toupees and whatever. And especially like when they're big years ago, the cowboy Indian scenes on the horses falling off the horses, we had to learn how to apply the wig and use certain hairpins so they wouldn't, if they fell off the horse, that it wouldn't protrude in the scalp. So we had to put them in a certain angle, and then the ends weren't real sharp. So we had to learn that on men. So
Oh, death by
yeah,
hairpin. Yeah, you want to
yeah,
avoid that. Oh, that's fine. It's funny because like as I was reading your memoir and looking through your
but
thousands of pictures, I mean, amazing.
but
Yes, oh, amazing
it's
book.
so heavy.
So many pictures, so many pictures. You're a great photographer, by the way.
Thank
The
you.
the continuity book is just pictures that Bonnie's taken throughout the years, and it's like just so many like just casual moments of behind the scenes of so many movies that we've all seen. It was really cool. That's it. That's the kind of thing I really love to kind of go through. So that book was right in my sweet spot in terms of really enjoying it.
Well, and I think that where the continuity comes in, for instance, if it's Hillary or Julia or Kristen Stewart or anyone, and they may be outside in the rain or the snow or just the wind. And so I would take a frontal, right, left side, and the back of their hair or wig, whatever the style was, too, because it might be a month or two that we might show her walking in the door. And so that hair has to be the same as she's walking in. So that's why there's so many continuity shots. Or we might film, like when I did Breaking Dawn with Kristen Stewart, we did Breaking Dawn 1 and 2 simultaneously. So if we were in a location that we had scenes for both scripts, then I had to make sure her hair was the same in the first or the second. And so the albums were filled with pictures. So that's where the continuity comes in all the pictures.
Is there continuity that you have to then sync up with like whatever? Is someone else responsible for like her clothes or like
Yeah,
another?
there's wardrobe, there's a costume designer, and then there's on-set wardrobe girl, or if it's a guy, for the guys, and of course the makeup artist. And so they're in charge of the clothes and the continuity of, if the zipper was half up or half down, or if so many buttons were buttoned, or, oh, last time there weren't enough buttons. And that's kind of like in almost every department, the prop department, even like when there's a lot of cigarette smoking or cigar smoking years ago, the ashes were the same length. So we might do 10 takes, and then they'd have to have the cigarettes ready with that amount of ashes on them. So that's where the continuity comes in with the special effects or prop people.
So when you watch movies, whether that aren't yours, does this ruin it for you sometimes if there's some bad continuity? Because like sometimes when the one thing whatever that is that about, if you're a cop and you're watching a cop thing or whatever it is, and like so you're finely tuned to this concept of continuity and how things are shot
Right.
out of order. Like, so are you ever watching something like this must pop out to you, and does it become really
If it's
distracting?
Well, if it's obvious, naturally, you'd probably pick it up too. But I mean, if it's a good story, I'm so far into it. And then, especially the hair, I can kind of tell that. Or if it's a good or a bad wig, if I know for sure that it's a wig, you may not know it's a wig, but I do. I kind of watch that.
It's interesting. Like so you tell a story about getting an opportunity with, is it Larry Germain?
Larry Germain was the head of the hair department at Universal Studios. And when I first started, I went for an interview. Oh, there's so many girls at this interview on a Saturday. And it was down in the office of our local. We'd heard that Larry was looking for a 2-year apprenticeship of one of the ladies that were being interviewed. And so I went in this long conference table with all these department heads from different studios. One of the first things they said, there's no way, no matter how many years you worked in a salon, that you'd ever know, like the continuity, for instance, and Indian wigs and toupees and all kinds of things. So anyway, had the interview, and then the next day Larry calls me wanted me to be his apprentice. I said I'd have to think about it. And so the next day I called him back and I just said that I just couldn't do it. Because at the time, my whole thing was having a family and children and that. And I knew that if I was in the studio for 2 straight years, I'd never have the opportunity to be out and working on sets and on sound stages and whatever. So I refused that from Larry Germain. And he was one of the best, but I did it.
And did everyone think you were crazy to
Yeah,
pass
yes.
up on? Oh, that's funny. All right. So then you have some cool stories about you got to work with Nancy Sinatra and Elvis.
hmm
Those are fun.
Yeah, I did a movie called Speedway with Nancy. And Elvis, of course, had back then in the 60s had his own, he had his makeup artist that would touch up his hair. And once in a while, I touched it up. Makeup artist was off the sound stage. Elvis and his buddies always played jokes on each other. And I thought, I've got one and I'm going to try it someday. And we all became friends. We're like family because we'd work so close to each other for hours a day. So one day I said, Elvis, can I light your cigar? And he said, well, I guess so. So I had a Zippo lighter that had the flame that you could put up or down. And so I had it on the high flame. And so when I go to light it, it was boom. Well, then he realized the joke and he laughed about it. But afterwards, I thought he could have burned off his pompadour. That part right here. And then a few weeks later, he was complaining about how dry his hands were in his cuticles. And so I said, well, I've got the best stuff that's going to take care of that. The makeup artist and what we'd use something called spirit gum. And it's like almost like a glue with a brush in it. That used to glue down this fancy lace that was on their forehead from the wig. And when you glue it, you can't even tell that little fine lace is there. It just goes right into the skin. So anyway, I thought I'm going to put some hand lotion on because I know he's going to probably smell to see what I've given him. So I said, Elvis, this is the best stuff for your hands. So I opened it up and he went to smell and I kind of turned my wrist so he could smell the lotion. So I poured the glue in his hands and I said, oh, too much. Hurry up, start rubbing it in. And now his hands are sticking together. And the makeup artist comes and cleans it up. And the next day, Elvis came to work and said, I watched TV all last night picking that stuff out of my cuticles and nails. So it was always something with Elvis. The guys always doing something, or the prop guys, someone. But
Elvis is lucky to have survived being.
I know I am. I might have called Larry Germain for a job.
There was a funny picture of him like playfully choking you from behind or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, with, I think Nancy. And then Nancy Sinatra gave Priscilla a baby shower, and I was invited. It was up at Nancy's house, and maybe about a dozen, 15 women there. And I had an infertility problem. And so halfway through the shower, Nancy had Priscilla and I stand up. And I thought, what is she doing? Well, it's an old Italian wives' tale. If you rub both your hands on the pregnant woman's stomach, that's supposed to bring you luck. And so I did it, sat down. That month was when I finally got pregnant. So
score
yeah,
one for old wives' tale.
Italian, right.
That's
and then I
awesome.
have the little, it's in the book, the little pink thank you note. And the back of it is the return address for Memphis. And the thank you is Elvis and I want to thank you for the beautiful shower gift, da 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 da. So a picture of that's in my book.
You knew along the way, you just knew that this is something because a lot of people tell a story and they go, yeah, I got this thing. And then, yeah, I don't know where it is,
Yeah.
It sounds like you knew to collect these things.
Well, and I've always been good with like family photo albums and scrapbooks. And I have a closet filled with family albums. And so I've been good about it. So I think it just kept me going in the film business.
I'm the same way. That's why I love the thing so much. Like we used to be a joke. I'd take the family to Disney World. I'd spend more time on the album than we did the week in Disney World.
Okay,
So
Jeff.
I appreciate you so much. So this is great.
Well, we're both from the Midwest, kind of.
Right, exactly.
We didn't have a lot to do in the winter.
A couple Photoshop skills, and So all right, so but you were good friends with the Sinatras, like if I'm remembering correctly from the book. Like you were on their healthcare at one point or something.
Yes. Well, in fact, I did a non-union called Moving with Nancy. It was a musical special with her father, Dean, Sammy, all the guys, and doing different songs in this musical special. And that was right about that time that I got pregnant because I went from the one thing to the next with Nancy. So I found out that I didn't have the pregnancy insurance because of the timing. What I did is I called before I delivered, I called Nancy's office. It's called Boots Enterprise. And I just asked if we were covered, when we worked together. And so they said, well, let me check, and called me back almost immediately and said, no, you're not, but Nancy wants to pay for your delivery. And I said, oh, no, that wasn't my point. I just wanted to see how I filled out the forms. So anyway, it ended up where I had to have a C-section, but back then it was probably a lot of money, but of course now it wouldn't be. And the Sinatra paid for my delivery of my son, Jason.
Wow. That's pays to have friends in high places. Yes. You also, well, in the Bonnie saying no category, Elvis wanted you to hang out with him for every movie, and you told him no.
Yeah, he'd gone to the head of the hair department at MGM Studios, and Mary Keats, and said that because he had a contract with MGM too, if I would be on all his movies. And so I went home, talked to my husband about it, and I just said, because I knew that meant traveling. And so when I went back to the studios, asked Elvis, I said, could you stand over and come outside? I want to tell you something. And I said, I really appreciate you asking for me, but I just can't do that, and the traveling and so forth. And he looked at me and he said, I wish I would have said no to a lot more people in my life too. Gave me a hug, and that was it.
As I was going through continuity, Heartbreak Hotel. Later, you got to work with David Keith as Elvis.
Oh yeah,
Hotel.
That just. I mean, even though it was David dressed like Elvis and had the wig on and everything, it still just brought back so many memories.
You're like, I got this.
Yeah.
Do you need a photo? I got it.
No problem.
No problem. So back to the continuity thing. So I mean, because that has to be the photos, and because throughout your book you have a bunch of all the different folks you've mentioned, but very specifically, Julia Roberts shows up a lot. You took a lot of Julia Roberts continuity photos. Is it like you take these photos and then you have to take them to the point where you have to then later study them to completely recreate exactly how you had left their hair, because everything could be shot out of sequence and all that kind of stuff?
Well, and then there was one I did with Julia. Most of the time we used her own hair, unless it was something in a character setting. A couple months after we did one film, I get a call and they said, we have to add to a scene. And I knew Julia had cut her hair. So I had to have a wig made. And I said to the producer, I said, how much time is the cut? If you've got her here, and then, do I have 3 seconds, 10 minutes, walking in the door, whatever. And they said, it's like couple seconds. It's almost immediate. And it was a close up. That was one that, of course, I can tell because I remember how I panicked and knew how I had to have that wig made and make that wig exactly like we shot her hair. So that was trying. That was a difficult one. It ended up working, but still, there's a lot of stress with that one.
You get to know these folks pretty well. I think you mentioned the thing, and I think anyone who goes and gets a haircut knows for some reason hairstylists become therapists. Right?
Right, exactly.
So is part of your charm. I'm not going to ask you any secrets, but don't worry about that. I'm not going to put you on the spot. But like, is part of your charm their trust in you to be able to talk to you, knowing that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. And I think you get that from anyone that starts being a best friend of yours or whatever. You just have that feeling. And, I just knew the importance from when I first started in the business, that trust that, we go home, that's it. Whatever happened in the trailer that day. Because, we'd have people no different than myself come in a bad mood, or they broke up with their boyfriend, or someone in their family has cancer or whatever. You have to have that feeling, and I think we all know how we get these feelings from people we meet, and then we're involved with, if it's through our church or whatever.
Who's got the best hair? And I mean, like it could be a handful of people. You don't have to pick one, but is there some people you're like, I can do anything with this person?
Well, I think Julia and Hilary Swank, yeah, they've got beautiful heads of hair. And of course Julia could go from blonde to red to brown, anything, and her hair is just so strong and easy to work with. And of course Hilary too. She's got a beautiful head of hair.
Is there anyone's hair that you wish? I mean, the list, yeah, you pretty much done everyone's. Is there anyone you're like, oh, I never got it, almost got to? I really wish I could have worked with this person.
I almost worked with Nicole Kidman. I wish I could have, because she plays so many different characters and different looks, and just the variety would have been, I think would have been great. And of course, Jennifer Aniston, I mean, she's got a beautiful head of hair. I mean, she's so well known for her hair. And so working with her, I worked with her own hair, I've worked with wigs with her, but yeah, she's a kind, wonderful woman too.
You worked with her, I think, first, unless there was one
Office Space.
Office Space,
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies.
Oh, really? Uh,
I love that movie. It
yeah,
was
it
so
really goes down. Yeah, it's been around forever and people still talk about it.
that was like I think that was before she like was huge, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
she was just
yeah,
and but she's so good in that. And like sometimes you forget and you're watching, you're like, oh my God, that's right, Jennifer Aniston's in this.
yeah.
And that's just one of the funniest.
Those guys are a riot, weren't they?
Oh my God, it's Jennifer with the flair and all that kind of stuff. It's yeah, I love
And then the director, when he played, in the restaurant,
oh
and I
the
put a wig on
owner.
Mike Judge. Yeah,
Yeah.
I put a wig on him about her flares. Oh,
So funny. When you're doing the hair, do you get to like you get to watch the whole movie being made as well? I mean, you're there, right? I mean, it's
oh
like
yeah. What we would do very often is, like, let's say we film on Monday, and depending on where we were in the country or whatever is, or in the world, we tried the next day after work or at lunchtime. We'd get to go in a screening room and watch what we filmed the day before or 2 days before. Just get the whole feels, which is great because then, we didn't have to wait till it was all over. Plus, we could do some mild corrections in every department, lighting. So that was, a good thing.
if they're outside and the wind comes in and the hair gets a little out, are you allowed to go cut? Are you allowed? Do you have that power?
No way, Jose. Because by then, neither the director or the script supervisor probably has found
That'd be amazing if you had that, though, right? I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
like,
I did that when we left Los Angeles and then moved to Indiana in the 70s. Then we went to Dallas, Texas with my husband's work. Texas had a good tax incentive at the time. So they were doing a lot of filming, and I had no idea that I'd be getting back in the business in Dallas, Texas. With the tax incentives, that's when I got started, back in it. And that's when I had the opportunity to work with Oliver Stone in Born on the Fourth of July and JFK, and Oliver's just brilliant. That's the best word for him. He's just brilliant.
love Oliver Stone. JFK
Yeah.
is one of those movies where, well, I can listen to the Al Pacino inches speech anytime, but like, and
Oh,
I
I
get
could too. Yeah, I love Al. I started with him in Vancouver, and so I was fortunate, work with Al and Any Given Sunday, which was an Oliver
yeah,
picture also.
yeah, that's it. And then JFK is the kind of movie where it's what, like 300 hours long? No, 3 hours long. And like, where it doesn't matter where it is. I can just watch it at
Yeah.
that point. And who did you do in JFK?
Well, I kind of, the department head was a girl that just ran the department, that I was like her assistant. We were in Dallas and then we went to New Orleans, and she did Kevin Costner. And then she had to leave for a while. Then I did Kevin. It was like we were just into, everyone.
That's awesome. And then did you
Yeah.
get to do Tom Cruise at all on Born on the 4th of July?
No, but he probably one of the most stressful haircuts I ever did was on the Born on the 4th of July, that I had to cut Tom Berenger's hair. He was the one that came to the high school, Tom Cruise's high school, to recruit guys to go into the service. He had to have a regulation haircut like they wear in the service. He came in the trailer, and at the end of the trailer stood a gentleman that was an officer in the service to watch that I cut the hair exactly the length that it was supposed to. And Tom Cruise is sitting next to Tom Berenger, and they're talking, and his head's going, and I'm got the clippers and I got the scissors. And that was probably one of the tedious haircuts I ever gave on a man, but it
Okay.
worked. And years later, Tom and his wife had a retirement place they'd go to in Florida, and I have friends that also were there. And so my friend went up to Tom one time a few years back and said, "We have a friend, Bonnie Clever. Oh, how's she doing? She gave me the best haircut." Now, I would never in a million years thought that he even remembered me or that haircut. So he could have been as nervous as I was. Who knows?
Everyone remembers people that make them look good. So, all right. So that was the most stressful. Do we have a most like outrageous? Like, what's the craziest thing you ever had to do to someone's hair?
I don't know if it was crazy, but something I'd never worked on before was Tim Allen in Santa Claus. That was the first time I worked with Tim, and then I worked with him on many other things, and he and his wife have become really close friends of mine. But anyway, because Tim had so many different looks in this Santa Claus movie, because he played himself, but he played himself as he aged, and then the different looks for Santa. And I had not worked with a special effects makeup artist that did all the prosthetics and the rubber face and having to apply wigs onto that. That was, I mean, difficult, but yet, I mean, it got done. But yet, that was one of the best I felt I did for being creative and doing something so different than most hairdressers don't do.
That's great. And there's a lot of good photos of that in the book
Yeah,
as well. Yeah, Tim Allen's from Detroit. So
I know. I
love Tim.
know.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then you mentioned it all started with JLo and Out of Sight, which takes place in Detroit. I'm just keeping a theme for a second. But
Right.
but you've worked with Clooney for a bunch of times also. He was in us.
Well, I didn't do George's hair because he had his own hairdresser, but I did several films. So they're in the makeup trailer all the time. They're, standing at the craft service table and, that kind of thing.
Got it. Got it. All right. So back to Tom Berenger's hair for a second, not specifically his hair, but how
Yeah.
much research then goes into some of the things that you've done? Because I imagine if there's a period piece like Eight Men Out or something like that, where do you have to spend time kind of learning the hairstyles of a particular?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then what I'd have to do is I would have a team of hairdressers that were like either in a warehouse or tents or whatever that would do the extras. So all those extras had to have that period look also. So sometimes what we would do on different films is when those extras would come in maybe a week before to be fitted in their outfit to save time the day of shooting. So they'd have their whole costume and marked with their name on it and so forth. Then I would either be there or I would send hairdressers, like for instance, for the men, if it was a period hair, style where they have to have the tapered back neckline and so forth and clean around the ears, then I would have hairdressers there that would cut the men's hair the week before. If someone said, well, no, I want my barber to do it, well, then we'd hand them a picture. And I tell you, some of the great researches were like the Sears catalogs because they showed children's clothing. And so they'd have all the hairdos for little boys, little girls, all ages, men, women. Those catalogs were great research for us too. And
That
then what I would do sometimes if I had hairdressers, like I said, during the fittings, I would make big poster boards and paste pictures. So, like if a man came in and he had black hair or gray hair or certain age, they would have a picture of approximately what that hair should look like. And then they would do it and save time. But one of the nice things when we did Born on the 4th of July, I had a fella that had cut hair in the Vietnam War. And he was, I don't even know how we found him, but anyway, he had a gadget that the clipper had a hose on it somehow, and that hair would go into this box. So when he cut 10 men's hair, there was no hair on the floor, but he just whipped that clipper up. That was really a godsend that we had him.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have a favorite time period, like hairstyle from a time period? Like if someone was like, "We're doing a '50s piece," you'd be like, "I'm on. I gotta be on that." Like, is there one that you just even just visually like
I
kind of
think the
threw in
60s.
the
I
'60s?
love the 60s. I love all that backcombing and the big do's and the French twists and yeah, I love the 60s.
Awesome. And so there's picture of so Kurt Russell, Captain Ron, and then Martin Short. I don't know if you did his hair, but like he must have been around because he's in some of your photos.
Yeah, I did Martin, yeah.
So is he crazy? Is he as crazy and
Oh, those guys are so much fun. They just it's so and the first couple weeks we were in San Juan, the caterer was not good at all. And so they end up bringing a caterer from the United States. I love to cook. So all of a sudden I said to Martin, I said, well, on weekends I could cook up some food and then bring it in. So long story short, I would make up taco salads. Or they'd give me $100 and I'd go and get the ribs on Sunday and put them in the refrigerator from the restaurant. So I would be on the big boat in the water, and they had a nice little yacht boat for Martin and Kurt. What they do 15 minutes before they break for lunch on the big boat, the ads would yell, bring the boat for Bonnie. So they'd bring this little boat over. I'd get on the boat and then I'd go over to the yacht and prepare and warm up their food or toss the salad or whatever. And so I fed those boys for a couple weeks like that. They're just stories like that that I just love telling and remembering, and especially the cooking, because every actor, it seemed like actress that I worked with loved to cook. Julia's an excellent, excellent cook. Hilary herself and Kristen also, we would just have all kinds of different times that we would cook, and we might be at a location in a holiday, cook a holiday meal.
Oh, that sounds fun. Cozy. Were the Ocean's 11 movies or the Ocean movies the new Rat Pack?
Yeah, the new
With
ones.
the impression I get is they were all friends, or they all used to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, was that a super fun set to be on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because those guys, they'd even play jokes on each other and, different things. And yeah, they were great. And I think to this day, they're still such good buddies. And of course, Brad and, George, they've done a few things together. And I think Matt has too, so they're all, from what I can tell, still good friends.
So, was the hardest one you did Curly Sue because her hair was so curly?
No, uh-uh. That wasn't a difficult one. And I had another gal on the show that watched over her more. I did more of the adults.
So, but getting to work with John Hughes must have been cool.
Oh, but take after take after take, he could go 20 hours if you'd let him. And of course, that was the last thing that he had directed. And of course, he wrote most of his work, but he was great. And I loved being in Chicago. That film went on forever. I was in Chicago. I saw the fall, the winter, and early spring. I was there like 6 months.
What's your favorite movie to watch that you've done? You mentioned the opposite. You said Eight Men Out is difficult to watch. Is there ones that you like? You love going? Oh, that was just because it turned out so well.
Yeah, well, I think Aaron Brockovich is one. The first time I worked with Hilary Swank was when we did the Black Dahlia in Bulgaria. All the things Hilary did, and like Julia, they were just really good story. I mean, well, Julia, of course, has one Oscar, Hilary has two, and Hilary just studies, and she's such a perfectionist with her work, which you can tell. I mean, she's got two Oscars. Those two gals are great. And of course, Pacino. I couldn't, when I was on the set, I mean, I could just sit there for hours and watched him. He's so brilliant and such a nice man.
Love Pacino. Love Pacino. What was the impetus to finally put your memoir together and put this all these bazillion photos together and make this amazing book?
When I was doing Snow White and the Huntsman in London, my son lived in Barcelona, Spain at the time. He said, Mom, we talked about maybe, writing a book someday. So we started. He came over to London and stayed with me a few weeks and start writing when I was at work all day. Then in the evening, we would sit and talk about. We knew from the very beginning it would not be a tell all book at all. We wanted to do the book where different things in our lives, we have to have continuity also. I wanted to just tell the truth about different things that happened, how I was brought up, different things that transpired through my life that weren't always pretty. But my determination that I wanted to be some and do something with my life, and I wasn't real good in school and didn't have the money to even go to college. And so that's, how I kind of came about, being a hairdresser. So then my son and I just kind of let the book go for a while, few years. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, I just said, I think it's time. And he said, I do too. The last year and a half, that's what we've done, is just put this book together. And now we're starting other books not film books, but all kinds of books. And I've become quite familiar now than ever with all the Twilight things that are going on, because that is just that's phenomenal. All the Twilight is just crazy. The fans, I never knew until it seemed like after I did them how popular and how people, I go to the dentist's office or my PT or whatever, people just can't believe that I worked on these Twilight movies.
I mean, your entire, if you look at your IMDb, I mean, just scroll through it. I mean, it's an incredible lineup of
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
movies and shows. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. A recipe book would be great, I think.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'd like to do that. When I first met Julia, I don't know how it was brought up, but that she loves sausage, biscuits, and gravy. And I said, well, because I lived in Austin, Texas, and learned how to make some pretty good sausage, biscuits, and gravy. It ended up where whenever we'd go on location, we'd always fill her refrigerator, with fruit and different things, but all the ingredients for sausage, biscuits, and gravy. Well, this went on for quite a while. And then we're in Las Vegas, staying at the Bellagio, and all the actors had these villas that go underneath the Bellagio. Julia had a beautiful villa with a full kitchen, dining room, everything. So one afternoon, she says, it was a Sunday, she said, we're going to be leaving pretty soon. We should make that sausage, biscuits, and gravy for dinner. And I said, for dinner? She said, yeah. And I said, well, we got to have something else. So I said, let's order a big fruit tray from room service. We're in the kitchen doing this. And all of a sudden the door knocks and open the door. And it's Matt Damon. He says, something smells awful good in this hallway. Because, in a hotel or any place. Well, before you knew it, I had all the guys at the dining room table eating sausage, biscuits, and gravy. And so little by little, the word got around. So when I did Brad and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'd bring it into him. I'd make it for Kristen Stewart. And it just became such a thing. And now my recipe, I put in the recipe book box at the Twilight House, the original Twilight House that's in Oregon. My recipe's in the box. So when the Twilight people come and stay there, they can see the recipe.
And if you buy the book, there's, I believe,
yes, the recipe's in the book.
But you got to get the book. That's awesome. I did one last question. It's just,
yeah,
you've been around since, I mean, every name you're naming A-lister after A-lister. These are like some of the top like people, and you worked with them when in their prime. There's some of them still in their prime, right? So I was like, is there anybody that you've ever met? I assume you can handle yourself around them, like meaning you're cool because they seem to be extremely cool with you. But is there anyone where you're just like, just can't function around? Like I met Henry Winkler once. I've talked to a lot of folks. I met Henry Winkler once in person, and like I couldn't get a word out because like in my brain it was like, dude, you're with the Fonz right now. Like it occurred, like my brain was like, you were standing with the Fonz, and like I couldn't.
It kept going through your head. Oh, well, I tell you what, I was doing a film with Hilary, and she was on her phone when I was doing her hair, and I didn't know who she was talking to. And she said, oh, come on, play my husband. You don't have to work that many days, and you can get off your show and get off of Grey's Anatomy. And then all of a sudden, I'm realizing she's talking to Patrick Dempsey. She says, in fact, she said, I'll let you come to my trailer and my people do your hair and makeup. You don't have to go to the big trailer. And I went like this. Oh, no, I just couldn't imagine doing his hair. And so sure enough, he comes and he gives me the biggest hug. And I'm thinking, she told him. She had to have told him. I mean, could he be this nice? And so he sits in my chair and I go to do his hair. And he said, I like a little trim. And I said, well, Patrick, I can't do that. And he said, why? I said, because you have to keep the continuity on Grey's Anatomy. Because I've had actors that have come back to me and then their hair doesn't look the same. So he said, "Oh, no, just snip." And I said, "I can." And he kept, so I thought, okay, I'm going to pretend as much as he can't see me do this. So we film, and then a couple of days later, he comes back because he had to go on Grey's. And he said that when he walked in the trailer, Grey's Anatomy, they said, "Patrick, you got your hair cut." And he said, "Oh, I just got a little trim." He said, "Who would have done that?" And he said, "Bonnie Clevering." "Oh, we love Bonnie. That's fine. That's fine." Because the hairdresser on that show, who does major films to this day, I kind of got his start. It got him started in the business. So he was fine with it.
That's so funny. That's awesome. Bonnie, thank you
Yeah.
so much for hanging out with me and sharing all these amazing stories. I'll put a link to the book in the show
Okay.
notes so that people
Oh,
can
thanks,
get
Jeff.
to
I
it.
appreciate that. Yeah, you're very easy to talk to, and I wish you a lot of luck too.